What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this one to break down what's going on with the overall market and talk about some very important levels on SPY, Nvda, Tesla, the QQQ, and a couple of tickers out there. I'm also going to break down this head and shoulders that's developing on SPY right now and talk about whether or not this is likely going to play out or how it's looking so far. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. If you deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks plus a $50 cash reward. The offer ends in just 3 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Anyways, looking at the market, as you guys could see, there's this head and shoulders that has been developing on SPY so far. You guys can see it right here. And so far, we haven't actually invalidated this head and shoulders, but at the same time, it hasn't been truly validated just yet because we have to wait and see if we truly get this break to the downside. Does this end up happening? These don't always play out the way you think they do. They don't always play out perfectly. That's why you need to be as open-minded as possible and watch for the rejection. And so far, we haven't truly gotten the big rejection that people have been talking about. We haven't truly, validated this big drop that could be coming. And the best thing to do is just watch and see which way we end up breaking. Unfortunately, today was a very sideways day in a way because SPY has been stuck between the 441 zone and very close to that as support, and 443, that zone up there, has been our resistance. Just going back and forth and back and forth. It's not really picking a clear direction just yet. And we'll just have to continue to wait and see which way does it break. That's going to be the best way to look at this. So if we break above 443.26 and we keep pushing, 444 is going to be the next critical resistance, and that is some tough resistance to break. If we test that and break it, we could push this imbalance, in my opinion, to about 445. And then 446 is going to be the next zone, which is where we have the head right here. If we break that, we're going to invalidate this, and we're going to be pushing to about 450. That is it's very much like a possibility if we get the break. And if we continue to sink down, you're going to be watching this 441 zone. The 200 EMA, I believe it's like the 4-hour time from on there, happens to be around 440.75. If we break below that, then there is potential for this thing to start sinking a little bit lower into like the 430s again, like 439, 438 and beyond. For now, it's not doing anything like that. It's just kind of stuck going back and forth in a very boring manner. So the best thing to do is just to watch and be patient. I can show you one thing that's worth mentioning. That's the fact that we technically have this interesting looking information right here. Looking at our trend lines, you can see we're trying to fight this resistance line right here. We got above it, came back below it. Now we're kind of like chopping around it. But we have this potential and possible ascending wedge that's developing on SPY. If this plays out, this could lead to like the right shoulder playing out, but don't assume it's going to play out. They don't always play out. So the best thing to do is just watch to see if we get a break or not. Do we break below this and start sinking down like this? If that happens, that could confirm this right shoulder and the market could start sinking. If it doesn't happen, if it keeps going, then we could just, it is what it is. It could just keep pushing and then start pushing to much higher levels. So far, the market's indecisive. It's not really picking direction. But I just want to remind you that we haven't truly invalidated this head and shoulders. It is still a real possibility. We just have to wait and see if we truly get the break to validate its end game, the big drop after that. So we're just waiting for that. The QQQ is very similar, but it's actually looking a little bit weaker than SPY because when you look at it, this thing had two possibilities, right? Either we get like the right shoulder starts like breaking down, it could be delayed a little bit, or it ends up invalidating this right shoulder and just tries pushing towards these imbalances for like 370 and beyond. But here's the thing about the QQQ, okay? We have this head and shoulders. It got the rejection, came right back up. It's still respecting this wedge so far. We have another wedge that's not as tight as SPY's, but it's also being developed. And we're going to be watching, when do we get the break? Do we get some kind of break below this low we made right here? Do we see a change in market structure? So far, it has not done that. It's been making higher highs so far and higher lows compared to like what we saw last week. So there's no confirmation of it breaking down just yet. There's no confirmation of this right shoulder playing out. So you should not assume it's going to play out until we truly get the break. That's one thing that's worth mentioning. And then as of right now, it's uptrending technically. Technically, it's trying to uptrend. We're going to see if this thing can try to break this high. If it does do so, then there is a possibility of 370. If not, it's just stuck once again between the 364 zone and about 367, going back and forth and back and forth. Really boring, if anything, not really doing much. But you just have to be patient in a market like this and see if this right shoulder plays out. If we get the rejection, then it is what it is. We're going to see a big rug pull. If not, it could just keep going. So we just have to watch it, see how it's doing. Apple's not looking that bad the last time I checked it. Apple's trying to hold up. If you look at Apple, it's currently around this 180 area. We were talking about this zone right here, 180 being our critical level. And we were basically stuck between 178.5-ish to about 180, going back and forth and back and forth. If we had broken this zone right here, right, 178.5, we could have started sinking, right? We could have started to sink, and that could have slowed down the markets. That didn't happen so far. It's kind of just range bound. And then the break above 180 also didn't happen. We didn't break above it just yet to try to get that breakout. That hasn't happened yet. Instead, it's just stuck. It's very stationary, going back and forth all day. It's been doing this since like the end of Friday. It's been going back and forth. Very, very boring. We're going to see if this develops into a cup and handle on Apple. If this is a cup and handle and Apple's going to try breaking out, if it happens tomorrow, we're going to be watching these imbalances. And if Apple starts pushing, the market could start pushing as well. If not, if it ends up breaking below 178.5 and starts sinking, the market's going to slow down. Right now, we're just range bound watching it, going back and forth and back and forth. We will see which direction it picks. So just watch that range carefully. We will see which way it breaks. For Nvda, unfortunately, it didn't push as high as I wanted it to. I was hoping for like 470 instead, it stopped at like 465. But if anything, oh no, actually it did. It did get a push. It just didn't reach 470 yet. So it hit 465, came down a bit to this demand zone right here, right? We had this demand zone marked, and then it got this bounce and it's trying to push up to about 470, but it's basically just range bound. It's looking a little bit better in a way because it's trying to base around this like 450 zone. So it's trying to base, which is a good sign. It hasn't really broken below key support. It hasn't also broken key resistance just yet, but there's a good sign on Nvidia, and this is the good sign. Technically, it had this market structure that was breaking down, making new lows again and again. Right, we had this low here, a new low, a new low. The list goes on, and then as of recent, you could see it made a low here, but it got a nice bounce. Now it's trying to break this high right here, so it's trying to change its market structure. If it keeps going, we're going to be watching this resistance between this 470 to 475 area. I want to see it try to get to here. If it gets to here, it could try to establish an inverse head and shoulders. There's a possibility of that. We had a nice bullish divergence that's trying to play out. But we have to watch it test 470. We need to see it try to break above 470. We're going to be watching that test on Nvidia. There's a sign of a change in market structure. It's starting to show some strength. It's showing signs of basing around this 450 area. This is the level I was talking about over the weekend. So far, so good from Nvidia. Let's see if this thing could try to do something better. Now, I also want to add that, could this be like a giant head and shoulders that's developing as well if we do get some kind of like push up here before it ends up coming back down? That's another possibility, right? This could be like a left shoulder. This could be a head, and we could be forming a right shoulder. I'm not going to worry about that just yet until we get up here first. We need to see if it could try to get back up to like 480. For now, don't worry about that. We're just going to be watching. Can this thing try to hold above 470? If it does so, that's going to be a decent sign. And there's going to be potential for it to try to push up a little bit higher before developing anything else like that. So that's for Nvidia. I think we just missed Tesla. For Tesla, this is looking very interesting, a little bit weaker than many stocks out there. We broke down these two possibilities. So I was telling you that we might see Tesla sink down because we had this ascending wedge, but at the same time, it was gaining some strength, and our key level was around this 244 area. If Tesla had broken this, right, this high, basically we had this rejection that kept on happening at this 244 area. It happened 2 times in a row. If we had broken this, Tesla could have pushed very, very nicely. We could have gotten a very nice push. It could have hit 245 plus, 247.5 plus could have come if we got a very strong break above 244.5. But instead, at exactly 244, that was the high of the day. Tesla got the exact rejection. We were talking about this as a possibility. Now, we had this ascending wedge, so I told you to be very careful with this. And it was a very clean break to the downside. It broke below the wedge, came right back down. You can see this was a very clean setup. Tesla bounced at about, what is this, like 235? That's the next level below 238 we marked. Very close to this demand zone, super, super close, and came right back up. So we're watching this, this more bearish scenario ended up playing out, but it doesn't have to continue to sink like this. It already hit this low level. So we could be looking for it to try to base and kind of like range trade here. And I think that either the news or some other catalyst could dictate Tesla from this point, depending on what the market does. There's some news that came out about Tesla being on trial over the FSD. With the trial going on, it's not the best of news, or with the trial, potentially happening, that's not some good news whatsoever. So we're going to be watching this. If Tesla breaks below 235, I mean, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of 234. Then, even the lower levels like 230 could be retested. If it tries to break out, you're going to be watching it try to break above 240. It's kind of like stuck right now. But I am seeing potential for it to try to rebound so far. So it's making an attempt to rebound. It's just not looking that great compared to the market. It's looking a little bit weaker. So watch for this thing try to base and try to like range trade around here. I think that's what's going to happen for the rest of the day. And with that said, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on with Tesla for the time being. Anyways, that's about it for Tesla and all these different stocks. I just want to look at the dollar real quick. The dollar is, let's just double check this. The dollar is still kind of flat. If you look at the dollar, it's just chopping around. That's part of why the market's not moving much. The dollar's just chopping. It hasn't really broken down, hasn't really pumped too much. It's just very, very choppy, not really doing much. So it is what it is, right? Sometimes days like this are kind of boring. They sometimes happen, but it's all part of the markets. The VIX dropping could be a good sign for the bulls because on, I think it's the 30 minutes time frame, there's a possible head and shoulders. Yeah, there's a head and shoulders that could be forming on the VIX, right? It's approaching this key support right here. We're going to be watching, does the VIX break below 14.5? If it breaks below that, it comes down to fill this gap around 13.91. This could be because of the market pushing. So there's a possibility of that. It just makes me like open-minded to that possibility, just looking at what the VIX is suggesting. So far, however, I'm not changing my views on anything. I'm simply telling you to just watch these ranges, see which way SPY breaks, which way Tesla tries to go. The market's just kind of choppy right now, very sideways. So we'll have to wait and see. And with that said, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. All right. So I'll see you guys in a later video. For now, just be very patient and watch your levels very, very carefully. Have a great day. Take care. And don't forget to be very patient when trading and do what you have to do that's best for your own lives and portfolios. Thank you and peace out.